bishops and popes and priests and presidents, gurus and shamanic healers, pharmacological dealers, zealots righteous in rebirth and worshippers of Mother Earth, mantra chanting, meditating. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. This is Tom coming at you from Washington State we are recording this on March 25th of 2013. And we have Ramon over in Japan. Ramon, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. Let's see. I missed a couple of shows there, but other than that,
you did.
I missed one live show with you, and
really.
Oh, thanks.
I didn't notice. Oh yeah, I love you, bud. Yeah, I know. So I hear you went strawberry picking here the other day.
Yeah, they actually had goats too. So like, you pick the strawberries, you eat them right there, and then the leftover you give them to the goats. And they were selling 2 goats for 500, and if I had room to buy
goats. Yeah,
because I love goat milk.
Well, what, you like put them on your patio and?
Yeah, it's Japan, so it's so tiny. We don't even fit in the apartment.
Oh boy!
But I want to, as far as the news, I want to get into this news thing because I find this extremely important, and read a little bit of it, and I'll have the link up on the news section so you guys can read the rest for yourself and look deeper into it. So President Obama to veto the Monsanto Protection Act. We regret to inform you, but late last week, Congress succeeded in passing Section 735, aka the Monsanto Protection Act, in the Continuing Resolution Spending Bill, HR 933. Once again, Monsanto and the biotech industry have used their lobbying powers to undermine your basic rights. So this pretty much gives Monsanto protection. So you know how before we were able to take Monsanto to court, you won't be able to do that. So if you're eating like the corn and you didn't know, and it
yeah, I just don't see how they can do that. I really just I don't comprehend how they can make somebody completely immune to anything that they do.
Yeah, that's completely illegal to put any corporation above the law. But it says a lot, and this is something we need to take serious and start thinking how we're gonna do something about it. Jeannie Gentry, I don't know if some of you guys who's been listening to the show for a long time, she was putting up the telephone number to call Washington and tell them to veto the bill and stuff like that.
Yeah, I actually, I'll have to admit to not following this at all. So I'm definitely going to have to take a look at it, though.
Yeah, I kind of want to keep my tongue, because this is some real bullshit.
Bullshit, man.
It's pure bullshit.
So, oh man, way to set the energy for the show, Ramon. Oh
okay,
my God.
Okay, I'll change it. Hold on. There's a new teddy bear out.
Yeah, there you go. Oh man. So shall we just get into it, Ramon?
Yeah. Maybe Laura.
You guys can find us on www.100thmonkeyradio.com. We've got Twitter, YouTube, iTunes, all those places you'll be able to find these shows at. So check us out and become a member if you haven't already, and you'll have access to all the second hour content. All right, so tonight we have with us Miss Laura Magdalene Eisenhower. Now, we've had her on the show back in August of 2011, and it's been a while since we've had her on here. But for those of you who don't know who she is a soul-reaching teacher and healer, recognized throughout by physics and healers, and identified in psychics and healers, and identified in Akashic Records as classified quantum access technologies. as a true archetype of Sophia Magdalene on Earth. She is also the great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower, and since young she has felt a profoundly strong calling to serve humanity and assist us in breaking free of the false matrix and misuses of power that threaten our freedom. You can find her at www.cosmicgaia2012.com. Welcome back to the 100th Monkey. Laura, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, wow. You've been very, very busy since the last time we had you on, and you are really doing some fantastic work out there, Laura. I just got to give you kudos for all that you've been doing in the last couple of years.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So,
Yeah.
have you seen this bill, this Monsanto bill?
I know it's, like completely hanging over our heads, and we're being pushed more and more into it. I'm not sure what the latest is. Is there something new that happened in the last couple days?
Ramon? When did this article come out? When did this come out?
The article is, I believe, from late last week, but I just heard about it yesterday. I was listening to Coast to Coast.
So this hasn't been passed yet, has it? It's just it's passed Congress, right?
Well, according to George Knapp, it did pass.
So Obama signed it?
I don't know if Obama signed it or not, but it did pass in Congress. I think it was like something shy of a vote or something like that. But they never passed any important bills, and then I think this was the first bill passed in 4 years.
Right.
Yeah. So Laura, you kind of keep your finger on the pulse of some of the more shadowy sides of what's going on in the political world and the military-industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera. Is anything new that you've seen rolled out here in the last little bit?
Well, I mean, there's been supposed arrests of the Queen, and of course the Pope stepped down, and there was a gathering, I think it was March 12th, with Obama in Jerusalem, that we did a huge meditation to sort of send a lot of light and good energy to kind of keep them from being able to grab even more power in that region. I mean, it seems like a mixed bag right now of good news and disturbing news. And I think we're just going to see quite a bit of that. And but really the latest for me has been what's taken place because of this meeting. And I was called, I guess somebody had channeled some information that I needed to get involved and help do this meditation. And I didn't really know the extent to what was going on. And I think it has to do with the Ark of the Covenant and something connected to Stargates. This has been a major window period this week, particularly because of the equinox, of just a major shift happening. And of course, when that is going to happen, there's dark forces that want to counteract it and spread sort of this virus to infect our minds and throw us into a lower vibration. So I've been feeling all of that. And but cosmically speaking, there's a lot of really, really good energy, lots of things getting very disrupted for people personally, which can act as a major catalyst for the good, or it can sink a person even lower into the gravity of some of this darker stuff. But I just see the lines being drawn, and just some real obvious battles happening, where people are making serious choices about what they're choosing to align with. And a lot of people have woken up to not wanting to give their power to the government anymore. And
right.
Those who thought Obama was great, I think are having second thoughts. And we haven't made any progress, and it's obvious. So
yeah,
on the governmental level, at least.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm seeing a higher percentage of those people that get hit with that trauma of whatever form it comes in, that instead of spiraling downwards, they're going down a ways, and then they're raising their heads back up. More and more people are finding that strength within self to overcome all the challenges that are being thrown at them, and they're understanding more where they're coming from, and I think that's a very important key.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it really does come down to the inner work, and that's how we affect change. And so all this stuff that we see in the news is just a chance for us to look at ourselves and really just step into an incredible opportunity that's here, because we are on an ascension timeline. Most that have done research in this have said that. Even those that have been very, very nervous about the solstice period and what was going to happen have been reporting that we really are on track. And a lot of, I wouldn't say negativity, but a lot of very real information was being shared by these researchers like Lisa Renee and Ashiana Dien and others, that it was pretty questionable. And so to hear their positive energy on the other side of the solstice, despite all that's happening, is just a really good indication that that despite what we see, we're still in the up. We're still moving in the right direction, because something on an energetic level has happened, and it's just taking the rest of whoever that's not quite there yet to catch up with it. I don't think that these laws or these dark agendas are going to carry much weight. I think the power of the human spirit is too much for them to contend with. And we're kind of beyond fear. Even what those with term sheeple are beyond fear. I think we're in, divine rage. And, you're going to mess with us. You're going to get like a volcano of energy of, I don't think so, coming back at you, rather than kind of cowering in the corner, just submitting to it.
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to. So I think they've pushed enough buttons, and now they've created a monster, and they're trying to create a slave. But good luck. So. Yeah.
They're definitely. Yeah. I definitely feel exactly the way you're expressing that, where that we are definitely moving forward at breakneck speed, despite what we see out there. The energy, the way I sense the energy right now is it's polarizing. There's definite polarization going on between those who are working on self and self-improvement, self-awareness, consciousness, becoming conscious, I guess is what it boils down to. Those who are working along that path, you can really, really feel the energy that's coming out of that side of the energetic field. And the other side, the more chaotic side, the ones that are really happy with the way things used to be, they are I kind of sense there's a sort of scrambling or a frantic sort of energy with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. With the you mentioned something about the Ark of the Covenant in Jerusalem. Do you think it was discovered?
Well, I know that William Henry talks a lot about this, and has been discovered, and it's being held by somebody who is connected to the prophecy of it initiating, ascension. But there's also information about it being in the wrong hands. I'm not too sure what the whole story is, but it's like a demiurgic technology. It's similar to any of these technologies that once were organic and just something we understood within our own nature, similar to alchemy and what people term as ormus or white powder gold. Right. I mean, the alchemists used to use it as a front, the term alchemy of turning lead into gold, to cover up the fact that really what they understood was the soul alchemy and how to turn a being in this density into a divine human, which we all have the potential to be, because that's what we originally are, and that's really who we are underneath it all. But things like Ark of the Covenant and things like the Philosopher's Stone and even the Holy Grail have become demiurgic technologies, which means that they can be really misused depending on whose hands they're in. And as we know, the technology on this planet right now is not in the right hands. The Ark of the Covenant, I think it's a little bit questionable. It's hard to say who's good or bad out there, but I think William believes that it's in the right hands. But I haven't heard his latest statements about what has taken place, which was something was supposed to happen this month. So I'll have to check back in with that.
Yeah, I think the way everything's rolled out up to this point, I'm going to say up to this point because I can't say what's going to happen in the future for sure. But the way things have rolled out in the past seems that all these big events that the powers that be, or that energy that wants to keep us from progressing, has thrown out. It seems like all it's like the plan for the whole ascension process. It's like these things had to happen for people to wake up, or for to throw people into certain experiences for their own personal growth, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it just feels like regardless of how ugly it's looked, it's all been divinely guided on some level.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's just the game that's being played, and that's what free will does. It pretty much creates every possible scenario imaginable, on top of the fact that we're multidimensional, and there's, multiple timelines, and the way we perceive reality or truth isn't fixed. It can shift based on our perception and based on what we're willing to own. And whatever we're willing to own is going to create a reflection, and it's going to attract us to certain information that's going to empower what's already there. And that's how we kind of manifest and empower a timeline and, manifest our reality. So, and I always use this example: when somebody's pregnant, they notice all the pregnant people. When somebody's in fear, they only, hear fearful things. They only attract themselves to fearful information. When people just take that plunge into more positivity and trust, it's amazing what starts to show up. It's almost as if the rest of it doesn't even exist, or it's so small in comparison that, people can rapidly move out of fear based on just devotion to seeing it through different lenses. Because, it's a balancing act. Everything in creation we're made of, every dark force, every light force, every race, every being, we have some kind of connection to. So we get to decide how we want to work it within ourselves.
Very well said. Very well said. Definitely got to give you that one.
Yeah. I also find, like, when was it? Wednesday, I ran into a friend of mine's here, and he started telling me some things about his experience as a child, and with different beings and stuff like that. And I know this guy for years already, more than 15, close to 20 years. And I was kind of shocked to hear this, because of course in all those years I've never heard him talk about it. And it seems that, and then I talked to some other people, and it just seems that it's very common that either A, I've seen a UFO, or B, I've had contact, since I was a child. Is just, of course, when I told him you need to come out and talk about this, he was like, it's not time yet. There's still that, I find where a lot of people that apprehension, that fear of ridicule, really is what it is the fear of ridicule. That right. Now I'm nuts. Because no matter what you've done before in the past, you could have had this perfect record. As soon as you start talking about that, it's all overboard.
Yeah, and see, this is all a part of the agenda, is our emotional reaction to things, our self-esteem, our self-worth. And for thousands of years, all these different things have been programmed into us to give us a certain level of paranoia about how other people think about us, and it stops us in our tracks. So it's amazing how, with so much polarity, duality, and truth and disinformation, and then here we are, these vessels called humans that are trying to sort it all out, on top of the fact that there's so much insecurity, there's so much fear, there's so much need for acceptance and approval, that these minor kind of subpersonalities that have been developed over the course of so many years, based on all these distortions in the media and these roles of gender distortions and how they're being played out, can really get in the way of us just owning the truth, even if we know it. So we've got multiple layers of stuff to work through just to get into that empowerment of being able to speak it, share it, live it, without any fear and without any concern of what others might think. And moving through those layers can be almost the worst challenge, and that's kind of what we're dealing with, because this is the final frontier. How can we as humans, own this stuff, share it, and rise into it without all the different stuff that keeps us maybe locked into an addiction, or, I'm not worthy, or what'll my friends say, that fear of isolation. And so we got to drop all that, because that is the veil, just what our egos put ourselves through that prevents us from finding that inner balance that is beyond ego. It's what the ego needs to pay attention to and align itself with.
Very well said. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's probably one of the biggest challenges I personally had, and it was married with my whole personal review of, when I did that real deep look in the mirror, and all this stuff started coming up. That I was learning about the programming at that point. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge, and there's some stuff that comes up, especially if you when you go out and interact with the rest of the world, and if you become very conscious while you're out doing that. You can watch the reactive mind, the reactive responses that pop out of your own face, and recognize them for what they are. And that's one of the first steps to take right there to really being able to clean that stuff out.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's pretty neat in a really weird way.
It is. I mean, it's so liberating when you really start to see, when you really, really understand the programming, and you really understand that you have the power to reprogram yourself, to deprogram yourself. It is such a liberating feeling. I mean, oh my God. It's
it really
like,
is.
Oh, wow.
Yes, especially if you weren't a good student like me, who never paid attention, who, was very ostracized for the way I felt and thought about the world. I found this information to be really validating. I'm like, yeah, I knew there was something up. Ever since I was young, I knew there was a dark agenda. I knew, that a lot of the information that was being shared in schools wasn't truth. And I kind of just, I don't know, exited. And I was very criticized for it and projected upon, and was raised kind of feeling that I wasn't very smart. And now I'm like, I feel a lot better because
Yeah.
I was onto something, and I wrote about it, and I didn't even think it was in my imagination, but I knew it was something I would just own on the inside. And when the time is right, I'll be able to share it. And I knew that the time would come that we would all be able to share in the way that we are today. So.
Yeah. So shift, Ramon, you got anything on the same line?
Oh no, I was gonna ask about something similar but different point of view. I was gonna ask you because I know you have like a deep connection with Gaia or Gaia Sophia. What are you feeling from her lately? What are you getting from her?
Well, I just feel, I think a lot of relief and just. I mean, I know the Sophia energy, and I feel it strongly in myself, and everybody carries it. Just like we're over the hump. I mean, even John Lash said, Sophia has broken away from the archons and is free of, all these different controls that have sort of kept her exiled. Just the planetary body, which is what that represents, in this state of being used as a resource, being controlled via technology, and just being completely just mistreated, and how that's manifested into just the divine feminine within men and women. Just that energy has had the similar experience within ourselves. Are you still there?
Yeah,
Hello?
we're still here.
Okay, sorry.
I just cut my mic off for a minute.
Oh, right. And so I'm feeling just on a global level, on a cosmic Sophia level, that we've really had a victory. I mean, I could feel it around the Venus transits, around June 5th, and then the solstice period was huge. And I got to tell you, the nervous energy and the anticipation, trying to stay neutral was very strong. I was working a lot of energy around that time, and it really could have gone in a different direction than it did. The first reading I got was basically like the Justice balance card upside down, and the Devil, and just like terrible readings with my cards. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not, because it was about the larger picture, which is, I shuffle daily like 20, 30 times just working global energy. So around this time I was like, just really working it, knowing that all the attention of the whole of humanity is on this date, and wherever people are choosing to align themselves is going to make all the difference in the world. And I just kept shuffling and working the energy, knowing that everybody was really doing that as well, working the energy, meditating, going to the spots that hold a lot of power. And then the cards just shifted right before that peak point. And basically it was like Death Tower, which crumbles and creates death, but then rebirth. And the cards were amazing, and I could feel the energy, and it was really, really high. And so ever since then, I've really felt that the Sophia energy, the planetary body, the cosmic mother, because it's all connected, the underworld, the mother womb, I felt that the victory had been reached, or the goal had been reached, but we're still dealing with what's called the archonic etheric grids, the false matrix, the chemtrails, and just sort of this suspension of the demiurgic energy, which is like the morphogenetic field. It's also like the biosphere. And, the Gnostics considered it Yahweh or like a god. But to me, it's an energetic that contains information of the 7 archons and the things that happened before Earth was manifested, but it also receives energy from us, because as above, so below, but also so below as above. The way we relate to these archetypal imprints is what feeds the collective, and the way we receive it is how we sort it out within our own nature. And so we have a lot more, obviously, creative control than we think. And when we start to just put it down to this deity or this god or this and that, we separate ourselves and we're not a part of the process anymore. So people have to understand that the demiurge is what, it doesn't separate us, but it stands between the higher dimensions and the physical world. And so because of all the different archetypal imprints that happened in the beginning of time with the Luciferian rebellions and the reptilian agenda and the Christ Sophia energy and the template of sacred union, the serpent lines and sort of this Yahweh law and order kind of being at battle, we have to recognize that the Kundalini is the snake energy, but it needs to come into alignment with that balance and order. But the two separate create these different races and these different wars, one being all about, the sexual energy and the misuse of power, and the other being the misuse of law and order to the point of oppression and, false authority and that sort of Zeus patriarch. And so what we need to do is integrate everything and find that balance and harmony. And so I feel that on the Sophia Gaia level, she's just being sort of a young planet and being personified in just our human experience, because we walk with her. I mean, this is our path. We are the Sophia energy and the Christ energy, that we have found a place of balance and harmony. And the only thing really left, the final frontier of all this, is the rest of humanity that has no idea what's been going on, that has been not privy to the intense amount of inner work and collecting of truth and information, and how important that's been. So, really the final phase is just rehabilitation and helping humanity really wake up and also help them recover from the trauma that is very much lodged in the unconscious. Because when people start to wake up, they go through horrific experiences. It's like the body detoxing. You can go through a crisis where you're flooded with things that are less than comfortable about the past, about your own past, about past lives, and just the fact that this world is being run by a satanic cult, a little bit difficult for most Americans or anybody in this world to grasp.
Yeah.
So they're really the final frontier, and it's not that they need to wake up to the difficult and dark stuff so much, but they need to really recognize the importance of service to others, balance and harmony in their own lives, and awakening to the real role of what the masculine and feminine represent. If they can just get beyond those distortions and align with that at least, then we're dealing with, an accelerated ascension on the planet. But the window period's till about 2017, and the bifurcation, it gets intensified closer and closer to that date, where the wheat and the shaft or whatever separate. On a conscious level, I don't know how that's going to look on a physical level so much, but it really does have to do with these timelines. So now, the Sophia Gaia energy within us, on a larger level that we're all connected to, is just really focused on that, is what I'm sensing. Just the nurturing of humanity, the rehabilitation of humanity, and inspiring as many as possible to call their power and attention back to the truth of who they are, because it starves all these different technologies that require the power and kundalini of humans to keep it going. And people, instead of voting for Obama, should just vote for this, because the government has nothing to do with this process. There's nothing in an outer institution that has anything to do with the process that we're in as a humanity. The rest of it is just a game. It's just, it doesn't hold any real value. And the game is that, we rely on something external to supplement our lives, to take care of us, and really it's the universe and the abundance of the universe that's going to do it, and it's our connection to that and the dormant spiritual abilities that we have that are the advanced technology that we're really looking to awaken, because none of these technologies we really need. I mean, they can be training wheels for a certain point. The internet's really helpful to connect us all, but there's got to be a point at which we start to progress in our spiritual abilities and start to put down the toys, because they're absolutely dumbing us down the more we rely on them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. How did you experience the 2012, the December 21st, 2012 transition? For me personally, it was, I sensed it. I'm pretty sensitive to the overall energies, and on the 20th, it was just absolutely chaotic. I mean, it was just felt the tension was palatable in the air. And the morning of the 21st, there was a calm like I've never felt before in my life. It was like the whole world was just one glassy pond of water. There was no ripples at all on the 21st as far as what I was sensing in the energy. It was bizarre. So how did you experience that whole transition through that week?
Oh, I might have not even said that the shuffling that I was talking about was during the 21st, the solstice period. I could feel the buildup of energy, and so that's how I work energy, is I just shuffle. I've been doing it for over 20 years, just with, once 9/11, and actually I've been doing it before that, just to really just get in touch with what's going on and to put it into the larger perspective instead of like personal readings. And so up until that point, things were really frantic, and that's what we're going to experience this week again because of some of the alignments happening. There's just a lot of disruption and upheaval. And so it seemed like everybody was really being pushed to do some major processing and inner work. At the same time, we're dealing with competing agendas that have been in the works for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, this has been just such a pivotal point in our history because the natural stargates opened during this time.
Do you feel like the guys the big guys that were pushing the buttons, the demiurges and the higher powered spiritual and extraterrestrial entities, it almost feels like the lackeys are running the show now, the one level down from the top brass, that are running the show now, and they don't know if and when they're going to see their bosses, or their bosses are going to push the buttons again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The planet's been in quarantine for quite a while, and it was supposed to sort of keep us from being able to expand into just the universe as travelers. But, with the technology exchanges, it's been a barrier for us, but not for the shadow government, which has use of all these technologies and space travel and this and that. So they are, in a sense, kind of waiting. Because they have their overlords or whatever, their dark lords that are elsewhere. And supposedly, actually around the time of that comment, Enlil, yeah. That everything was closed off and the dark entities aren't able to come in. And so those that are waiting for them are kind of sort of abandoned. And then also certain ways that they were going to capture the cosmic peak energies around the 21st. Was going to create a pole shift where they were going to harness all that light coming in to flip the planet and wipe us all out. And so the Mayans knew this, and they devised a way to counteract this, which seemed to be successful because here we are. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of tension. I could feel it from all sorts of beings, all sorts of timelines and agendas, all sorts of races. And it was like everybody was gathering for the big show. To see, what's going to happen? Kind of like it's an Olympic thing or something. And so, like I said, I was shuffling, and the first reading right around the peak time, that would have either been that pole shift or something huge, there were really dark energies. There was the upside down balance card and justice card, and then the devil card. That didn't seem so good, but then I just kept working the energy, knowing that everybody was meditating, working the energy as well, and then it all flipped. And it turned really, really, really positive and really, really good. So similar to you, during that time, I felt incredible peace. I mean, I felt like I was sitting in the middle of the galactic core, and I was breathing a breath that was so beyond my human form. It almost like, I didn't even know if I was going to survive it somehow. I mean, it was like, but in a good way. I'm like, I could literally like lift out and be gone, and it would be great. But no. It would be great to stay here too. But it was immense. And then the next day, I felt really good, and a lot of the reports that came in were positive. But yeah, I worked energy pretty much throughout the whole night. And I have been ever since, but I have been most of my life. So
have you seen a since the 21st? Have you seen a growth in that energy field? I mean, that positive energy line. I suppose you've already answered this.
yeah, I mean, I definitely, I feel that. And I feel, as we take a step up, we're always kind of pulled back under. And this is, Mars and Pluto are squared tomorrow, which is very tense. This alignment rules things like murderers and, I mean, it's like violence. It's a very powerful energy coming in tomorrow. And so what we need to do is just be very conscious of how we work the different energies that are coming in. We're going to be highly challenged. Lots of inner stuff is going to come up. Lots of our attachments are going to be, ripped from us if they don't serve us anymore. So there's a lot of light increasing, but not without a lot of inner struggle. I have clients that are just flipping out. It seems like people are going into more darkness, but to me, if they're being dragged into more darkness, it means that they can potentially embrace more of their light. So
Right.
I see all these different changes happening as a positive, even when it dips down into really, really negative area, because I know that there's enough support, and I know that people are reaching out for the right places and energies. But at the same time, there's all sorts of new age deceptions that are reeling people in, and that's really disturbing because a lot of the light workers I know, I'm amazed at the different groups that they've started to associate with that promote things that don't seem really beneficial. But I'm not here to judge. I'm not like the moral police or anything, and I'm not perfect. But there's some clear, definite deceptions out there that are taking people in. I mean, based on their free will, of course. And so that's a little bit alarming. But I mean, this is an individual thing as much as it's a collective thing. So
Right.
I don't like to gauge one person's experience based on what's going to happen to the collective, even though some do. I think as long as we're doing the work personally, it's going to feed the collective and help the collective, but I don't think we're going to be stuck if the collective doesn't make it, with the numbers as far as the majority helping us get over this hump. I think
Right.
in many ways we are over this hump, and it's just about catching up. And even though there is this window period, I think something's shifted that wasn't expected, where even when this window period's up, it doesn't necessarily look like enslavement for those that can't ascend. I'm seeing more rehabilitation and more of the powers being handed to those that can make a change, and that the powers that are just going to slowly die away, and just sort of, because the thing is, during this bifurcation time, one aspect of the 3D reality would go into phantom Earth, which would eventually turn to space dust and pretty much, never ascend. And that would be like the prison planet. And the other one would be to, move on into a higher density Earth. And, to me, because we're multidimensional and because we're lucid dreamers, it's a reflection of what we've chosen to do with our energy and our power. And so if people have given their power away, if they don't fully know themselves, I mean, what else would you call enslavement? So I don't see us as victims at all. I think people, need to just understand that everything is a reflection. And right now we're seeing multiple things crisscrossing each other, and we mistake it for maybe our own personal destiny or timeline. And people can easily fall into fear if they start to look around too much. But I think we're just seeing a lot of different possibilities, and we're very empowered right now to make a choice. Okay, well, what do I want to align with? Even though that's happening over there, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah,
But we are a global family, so we have to think in terms of the collective and the greater good of all, but we don't need to become fearful because somebody else is going down the wrong road. We can do our best to just wake them up.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of when you're talking about going into the darkness. It kind of reminds me of a proverb I read, and I don't know if I'm gonna say it correctly, but a fool goes to the light. What was it? A brave person goes into the darkness and finds their own light.
Yeah. You can't really get anywhere without facing the darkness, or the dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it. I spent more than 20 years in darkness. And I consider myself to be a pretty light being. And I always was as a child, but I went into a territory that was so dark for so long, I didn't think I would ever get out. And it was like, it wasn't because I was depressed. It wasn't because I was having a hard day. It wasn't because, it was a place I wanted to go necessarily, but I knew that it was part of my work. I knew that this was absolutely necessary. That's why I wrote a book about it. I called it originally Chronicles from Hell and the Quest to Unite Heaven and Earth, because I knew that going into the darkness meant planting a seed of light and merging these different polarities within myself or just for the planet, because I felt like I was going beyond my own soul into just the world soul. And, you know, the darkness is an amazing place, and they've taught us to fear it, but it is the fertile soil. It's the soul. It's the creativity. It's the forces of regeneration. Darkness is amazing, and it's important to get as comfortable with darkness as we possibly can, because that's where we claim our power. You know, the things that hide in the shadows, you know, can get the best of us if we don't face them and just confront them and, you know, raise ourselves senior to their influence.
Very well said. So shift gears just a second. When you were talking about the astrological stuff that's coming up here, and you mentioned Mars and Pluto lining up, it made me wonder what kind of influences those people on Mars are going to experience. Will they experience the same Earth-based type experiences, or would the astrological effects be totally different due to location?
I think it would be different, just because here we are on Earth, and it's not like, I mean, Virgo's an Earth sign, Taurus is an Earth sign, but they're both ruled by Mercury, but it grounds us to this planet. So I would think somebody on Mars, if there's a lot of activity going on Mars, that it would ground them to the Mars energy of the planet that they're on. You know, Mars is very much about domination, aggression, and power, and willfulness and ego, but the higher octave of Mars is divine will. It's the willfulness that's aligned with spirit. So, you know, the things going on Mars, especially if there's a square to Pluto, is either going to amp a lot of dark energies, or it's going to shake things up and test, you know, certain beings to perhaps choose to use it in a different way, because Pluto represents more of the primal power of the universe. It's beyond ego. It's a much stronger power, but on Earth, you know, we can misuse it based on how our ego chooses to guide it. But very often when Pluto comes along, it forces us into a death that our ego doesn't necessarily want, like an ego death. So a square aspect is tension, which means that there's a possibility for an ego death, but that whoever's kind of going through it and doesn't want it is going to fight it tooth and nail, and maybe fight it to the point of becoming violent and harming other people, because they can't do this. They can't go through the growth. It's too hard. They'd rather take out their frustration on others or victimize others, which you know, a lot of the Mars energy in the Orion group and the things in our history connected to the fall of Atlantis connect to. But with the other things happening, with the full moon being in Libra, which helps to balance things, and some of the other influences from Uranus, which represent truth and breakthroughs and upheaval, you know, people might find that they can't really get away with misusing that power without another force coming in, you know, opening up just a level of fear of what that misuse can do. You know, people are going to do the wrong thing until they're scared into just, oh, wait a second, you know, maybe my karma is going to be affected, or maybe I can't get away with this. Because the thing with these technologies, they think that they can get away with all kinds of stuff because technology can enable immortality. But because people are waking up so quickly, and because it's sort of affecting this agenda to pull off, you know, like us being enslaved, you know, it's a chance for them to realign themselves with maybe a better choice, because I think they must know that they can't really win at this point. There's too much publicity around the Queen being arrested, the Pope being arrested, the pedophilia, and this and that. And, you know, Obama's pretty much next in line. And if it's not Obama, it's the people that's behind him. You know, the folks that are just pulling the strings of what he's doing. You know, I'm not here to blame or judge Obama or pretty much anybody, but whatever's pulling strings behind the scenes is going to pretty much be next in line, I would say. And it's obvious that there's nowhere left to go. And so I think we're going to see that they're going to perhaps do their best to pull something off that's negative, but in their attempts, they might find that it's not going to work. And many dark beings might decide to wake up during this period, and many might just refuse because they still want to play that role, because they are just playing a role. It kind of depends on the necessity of the balancing act of humanity, because there is a reason we have that dark polarity. So, you know, it's hard to predict, but the planetary forces coming in, I think, are really amazing this week. But at the same time, in the peak period of that Pluto-Mars squared, it could get pretty ugly for some.
Yeah, yeah.
With the whole thing of the Queen being arrested, has that been confirmed, or has it been covered, like kind of like the Pope, you know, saying I'm stepping down because of health?
Yeah, I mean, it's all, as far as how the mainstream receives it, they're never going to know the deeper stuff. That's all just in that alternative news. I don't know the validity of all this. I mean, they hold so much power that I'm sure that they can kind of get themselves out of it, but it's the public. The more exposure they get to these sort of stories and the more they sort of, question, why the heck would that happen? This is the Queen. We hail the Queen. People who are that asleep. If that kind of news could reach them, I think it would just be incredible, because these huge power structures is where people need to they need to see what's happening. I mean, that's the most important thing for people to call their power and energy back.
Right.
But I don't think anything's mainstream, and a lot of this will be covered up because Bush was arrested, Bush Jr. During all the stuff with Alfred Weber and the War Crimes Tribunal. Nothing really came of that, except they're not allowed to travel to certain countries, or else they'll be arrested. But we're dealing with people who utilize time travel and teleportation and underground bases. So they've been running around behind the scenes in their own way before we even knew this type of stuff.
Yeah. So
who knows what's going to happen with them. But the point is, the more people wake up to how negative and how abusive and how despicable the crimes that go on behind these, the Vatican, the royal family, and our governments, better off all of us are, because we'll start to look to each other instead of them, and that's exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of people that are trying to, take proactive steps to working out how we change over this paradigm into something that's more sustainable and more people friendly. We've got these, kind of like get your opinion on a couple of these things, like OPPT. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, a little bit. I've heard a lot about that recently too.
Yeah. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't really know, because as much as I like to stay on top of everything, I've distanced myself so much from any sort of organizations. I'm just so much on the inner focus of, shifting energy just based on the inner work, that I can't. It's almost hard to look at anything external anymore. But I know that it counts because we're dealing with big populations. But maybe ask me something a little bit more specific about it, because I wouldn't really know where to begin.
Oh, well, I sense that there are some key points in what they're doing that are going to reach people and make people, get people to ask questions, to look at things differently. So along those lines, I feel that there's my gut sense tells me that they're playing a piece in the puzzle. But as far as their whole idea, I think there's some issues there personally. I don't know.
It sounds really, really great, but the thing is, when something sounds really, really great, people put their hope and their power and their attention on it to the point where, it can take away. So yeah. I think if people just are balanced about it, have discernment, and are open to it. I mean, I think it's really positive, but I mean, we're very traumatized. A lot of things appear a certain way, and then we find that it's very controlled, or it's been put out there by the wrong forces just to kind of lead us on. And so I've just sort of kept most things at an arm's length. But
yeah, that's about where I'm at too.
Yeah, but I think there's either the controlled collapse of the economy or the one that we make happen, and that's really where it's at right now. Is it going to be us that sort of brings it down, or is it going to be them who brings it down? The problem is either way, they have something to catch it. And that's where the police state comes in, and the chipping and the controlling of the population. So at this point, whatever crumbles, there's something huge waiting for us that they're going to pull us into that we don't want, which has to do with the transhumanism agenda. And, people are saying that they're starting the chipping, and they're supposedly starting on the 23rd. And so, these kind of organizations are great because it gives us a feeling that, on our own initiative, we're 2 steps ahead of them or whatever. But they have, they've been utilizing technologies to kind of keep track of the vibration of humanity and how we react to certain things like false flags. But things like looking glass technology aren't able to see anything past 2012. So there's a lot of unknowns as far as how humanity is responding to anything, and I don't think they can get that kind of information as easily anymore. That's why this is such an important window period right now, because they wanted to, at least suck us into the point of us being capable of destroying ourselves, even if they aren't here, because we're so programmed or just so dysfunctional and so separate, and such historical resentments about all these different wars that have been used for that very purpose, conquer and divide, that we're going to do fine annihilating ourselves without their help anymore. And that's why they've done so much up until this point. Now, people are so empowered, and now they don't really have the ability to gauge how humanity is going to respond to anything, that this is a more positive period for these sort of movements, because there's a little bit less of an ability on their part to monitor everything that we're going to do. And particularly the reptilian brain doesn't handle spontaneity well.
Right.
And just shifts in plans that all of a sudden get in the way of what they've been trying to do in secrecy for so long. There's been enough whistleblowers to give us an idea before the covert control has become like overt. And I think, we've utilized the small amount of time that we've had before it's become a more obvious control for those that just have no clue and will think, oh, it's terrorism and they're protecting us, when they set it all up to enslave us. I think that we're far enough in the game, or understanding the game, to be able to revolt against what they might try and do, regardless of what type of collapse happens, whether it's controlled or not.
Yeah. Do you think that the 2012 Olympics was a good example of that, of the conscious population out there thwarting some plans that they had? Because I just sensed that all the whole build-up before those Olympics, it was just blaringly apparent that they were going to try to pull something off, and there was so much expose out there by the alternative media that got into the mainstream media in some limited fashion. But it just seems like all that attention that was put on all the symbologies and everything that was going into that may have thwarted some plans that were put in place.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. There's been a lot of plans put in place that never came to fruition. And that's the thing, and that's what I love about the alternative media. The minute something happens, immediately, there's YouTube videos like Sandy Hook. All of a sudden, all you see are, these are actors. Even if what's true or not true doesn't matter. The point is people are talking now. And it's not so much about who's right, who's wrong. It's the fact that everybody's talking, and they know that there's something up, and that they have the ability to manipulate and come up with false flags and use actors, and it's amazing because it gets a lot of hits. And the thing is, like with the Hawkins scale, one awake person can compensate for 2 million or 200 million people who are asleep. So one person that clicks onto a video who all of a sudden has an epiphany and really wakes up has the ability to shift a whole bunch of people that aren't awake at all. And that's the 100th monkey, and here we are.
Yep, I agree. Ramon, I felt something from you. What's up?
Oh, no, I'll save it for the second half, since we're right up. We'll start off with that.
So, Laura, we just got a couple minutes left here in the first hour. What's coming up for you? What you got? Any big plans? You got another book in the works, and website, and where can people get a hold of you?
Well, I've this weekend, March 30th and 31st in Irvine, California, I'll be speaking at Cosmic Reunion 4th Density. And Peter Sterling, Barbara Lamb, Nora Harold, Dr. Dream, my partner, are going to be speaking. I think Cynthia Crawford, or she might not be at this one. Lots of really amazing speakers. I could name more, but let's see. My website is cosmicgaiasophia.com, and you can find out everything about what I'm doing there.
Fantastic. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for this first hour, and as usual, if you would like to hear more of the 100th Monkey Radio, we urge you to go to our website, www.the100thmonkeyradio.com, and think about becoming a member, and you'll have access to the hundreds of hours of second hour content we have on there. So we will be back in the second hour to continue this wonderful conversation with Laura Magdalene Eisenhower. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you care.
And I'll see you on the other side.
Hapless crying in the night like moths misled into a light. Information overload. process sleep.